portrayed by Ralph Fiennes, arrives alongside fellow clergy members at the Vatican to pay their final respects to the Pope, who has just passed away from a heart attack. The cardinals quietly gather around the lifeless body of the pontiff, cloaked in solemn silence. Once the Pope is officially pronounced dead, Lawrence is visibly emotional and sheds a tear, signaling the deep bond he had shared with the late Holy Father. He then meets with his close confidant, Cardinal Bellini, played by Stanley Tucci, and the two reflect on the Pope's legacy, as well as the personal closeness they each felt toward him. 3 weeks later, the College of Cardinals assembles in strict seclusion to commence the sacred process of the papal conclave, with Cardinal Lawrence taking on a leadership role. Clergy from around the world, including cardinals, bishops, and nuns, arrive at the Vatican as the elaborate rituals and procedures of the conclave begin to unfold. The question now looms large: who will be chosen as the next leader of the Catholic Church? Among the potential papal candidates, several prominent names emerge. Bellini, known for his progressive ideals, is considered a liberal voice in the Church. On the opposite side of the ideological spectrum is Cardinal Joseph Tremblay, John Lithgow, a staunch conservative with rigid, traditionalist views. Another contender, Cardinal Joshua Diehz, Lucian Psalmody, shares a similarly conservative social stance, but is more nuanced in political matters. Lastly, Cardinal Goffredo Tedesco, Sergio Castellitto, becomes a cause for concern. Both Lawrence and Bellini view him as a reactionary whose regressive vision could undo much of the Church's recent progress. While neither Lawrence nor Bellini harbor personal ambition for the papacy, they are determined to prevent Tedesco from ascending to the position. Soon after, Lawrence is approached by Archbishop Janusz Wozniak, Jacek Koman, who appears visibly troubled. In a private confession, Wozniak tells Lawrence that the last person to see the Pope alive was Cardinal Tremblay. According to Wozniak, the Pope had dismissed Tremblay due to gross misconduct, although the exact nature of this allegation remains unclear. Despite this disturbing claim, Tremblay is currently one of the leading candidates in the papal election, which makes the revelation even more troubling. Shortly thereafter, Lawrence is introduced to an unexpected figure, Cardinal Vincent Benitez, Carlos Diehz, the Archbishop of Kabul. His sudden appearance at the conclave raises eyebrows among the other cardinals, who question whether he truly belongs among them. Benitez reveals that he was made a cardinal in pectore, a secret appointment by the late Pope the year prior. He is a man of quiet dignity, known for his missionary work in conflict zones and his compassion for those suffering in war-torn regions. Though some remain skeptical, Lawrence introduces him to the College of Cardinals and allows him the honor of blessing their shared meal. As deliberations continue in private chambers, Bellini reiterates his urgent desire to block Tedesco's path to the papacy. In a moment of quiet tension, he meets with Tremblay to discuss the allegations surrounding his dismissal. Tremblay angrily denies the charges, insisting that Archbishop Wozniak may have been under the influence of alcohol when making such claims. The conclave officially begins the next day. Lawrence gives a stirring address to the college, urging them to embrace the heavy burden of discernment and be prepared to face moral ambiguity and doubt. The first round of voting takes place, with Cardinal Diehz emerging as the early frontrunner. However, a few unexpected votes are cast for both Lawrence and Bellini. In response, Bellini reluctantly agrees to support Diehz alongside Lawrence, seeing it as the best way to prevent a disastrous win for Tedesco, despite Bellini's deep unease with Diehz's homophobic views. Meanwhile, Lawrence enlists the help of Monsignor Raymond O'Malley, Brian F. O'Byrne, to quietly look into Tremblay's past and verify the misconduct claims. However, no concrete evidence is uncovered. That evening, Lawrence overhears a tense conversation between two nuns, which he mentally notes for later. The following day, during the second voting session, a loud disturbance outside the Vatican disrupts the conclave. It is reported that some kind of explosion has occurred in the nearby streets. Lawrence, fearing the influence of external chaos on the sacred proceedings, decides to withhold the news from the other electors for the time being. Diehz maintains his lead in the votes, but continues to fall short of the two-thirds supermajority required for election. During lunch, a nun named Sister Shinumi, Balkisa Maiga, publicly confronts Diehz, creating a stir among the cardinals. Lawrence seeks counsel from Sister Agnes, Isabella Rossellini, who permits him to speak privately with Shinumi. In their conversation, Shinumi reveals a painful secret. 30 years ago, when she was only 19, she and Diehz had a child together. Diehz later confirms the story, referring to it as a lapse in judgment. Lawrence, bound by the seal of confession, chooses to remain silent. Nevertheless, rumors soon spread through the Vatican, and Diehz's support plummets. In a surprising shift, Bellini begins to throw his weight behind Tremblay as a strategic move to defeat Tedesco. Meanwhile, O'Malley shares that the late Pope had arranged for Benitez to be secretly flown to Geneva for an undisclosed medical procedure. Lawrence meets with Benitez, who confides that he cast his vote for Lawrence in the previous ballot. Soon after, Sister Agnes tells Lawrence that Tremblay was responsible for having Sister Shinumi transferred to the Vatican, an action that now seems calculated to sabotage a Diehz candidacy. When Lawrence confronts Tremblay, the latter admits to arranging the transfer but claims it was done at the Pope's request and that they were unaware of Shinumi's history with the Diehz. Tremblay counters the accusations by suggesting that Lawrence harbors ambitions of becoming Pope himself, a claim Lawrence vehemently denies. Haunted by suspicions, Lawrence secretly breaks into the late Pope's locked quarters and discovers a notebook and several documents that confirm his worst fears. Tremblay had been bribing other cardinals to secure their votes, and this corruption had prompted the Pope to call for his resignation. Lawrence shows this evidence to Bellini, who urges him to destroy the documents. It becomes clear that Bellini himself accepted one of Tremblay's bribes. Disillusioned and shaken, Lawrence realizes just how deeply compromised the Conclave has become. On the third day of the Conclave, Lawrence and Sister Agnes photocopy and distribute the documents, exposing Tremblay's manipulation and the bribery scandal. The revelations spark chaos among the cardinals. Agnes confirms that Tremblay orchestrated Shinumi's Vatican transfer to publicly humiliate Diehz. Later, Bellini approaches Lawrence in shame, asking for forgiveness, which Lawrence grants. Now, only two viable candidates remain, Lawrence and Tedesco. Just before the next vote, a devastating suicide bombing occurs outside the Vatican, sending shockwaves through the building and causing visible damage to the Sistine Chapel. Many people are injured or killed in the blast. The atmosphere is shaken, and emotions run high. In response, Tedesco blames Islamic extremists and urges the Church to respond with force. His inflammatory rhetoric draws outrage from several cardinals. At this moment, Benitez rises and delivers a powerful and heartfelt speech, drawing on his experience in war zones. He warns against the temptation to meet violence with more violence and pleads for a path of compassion and peace. His words resonate deeply with the gathered cardinals. After a final vote is cast, Benitez is elected as the new pope, taking the name Pope Innocent XIV. Following the election, O'Malley approaches Lawrence to ask about Benitez's mysterious trip to Geneva. In a private audience, Benitez reveals the truth. During an emergency appendectomy, doctors discovered that he had been born intersex, with a uterus and ovaries. He underwent a diagnostic laparoscopic hysterectomy, but ultimately decided not to alter how he lived. The late Pope had known, and kept this a secret. Benitez says he chose to live as God created him, and Lawrence agrees to guard this secret, affirming his faith in Benitez's leadership and in divine will. As white smoke rises from the Vatican chimney, signaling the election of a new pope to the world, the crowds outside erupt in cheers. Lawrence, standing alone in reflection, begins to smile, moved by hope, renewal, and the faith that the Church may now be in compassionate hands. Thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe, like, and turn on post notification.